Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to explore a quiet but powerful journey when James and Diep leave everything behind to work side by side in a remote northern mountain village, discovering how simple work, trust and shared purpose can slowly change a relationship. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our upcoming videos. The morning in the northern mountains always starts quietly. A thin layer of fog hangs low over the village, wrapping the dirt road and the small wooden houses in a soft pale grey. The air is cool, fresh, and smells faintly of wet soil and ginger leaves. A small truck slowly makes its way into the village, its tyres crunching against gravel as the sound echoes between the hills. This is where the company's workday begins. Diep steps out of the truck first. She's dressed simply, long sleeves, sturdy shoes, but there's a calm authority in the way she moves. She takes a quick look around, scanning the yard and the warehouse, as if mentally checking off a list. This place may be remote, but everything here runs on order and trust, and she's the one holding it together. James follows closely behind, carrying a clipboard and a small notebook tucked under his arm. He pauses for a second, breathing in the mountain air before getting to work. As Diep's assistant, he's learned to stay alert from the moment the day begins. No rushing, no unnecessary words, just paying attention. Inside the warehouse, sacks of produce are already stacked neatly. Taro roots still dusted with soil, baskets of fresh ginger with their sharp, earthy scent, crates of potatoes and piles of green pomelos waiting to be inspected. The space is modest, but organised. Everything has its place. Local farmers begin to arrive, some on motorbikes, others on foot. Their faces are weathered by sun and wind, but they greet Diep with warm smiles and familiar nods. She returns each greeting naturally, asking about their crops, their families, the road conditions from their fields to the village. James listens as he writes, noting weights, quantities and names. When Diep speaks, he watches closely, ready to step in if she needs documents, figures, or a quick confirmation. Over time, they've fallen into an easy rhythm, one that doesn't require much explanation. The first batch of taro is brought forward. Diep kneels slightly, picks one up and checks its firmness. She gestures for James to record the grade. "Size is good," she says calmly. "Moisture level looks fine." James nods, jotting it down. "No signs of rot," he adds, turning one over before placing it back. One of the farmers chuckles. "You two work like you've done this for years." James smiles politely, while Diep simply responds, "We're learning from everyone here." As more produce comes in, the warehouse slowly fills with quiet activity. Scales tip up and down, sacks are shifted, numbers are called out and repeated. There's no tension in the air, just steady work and occasional laughter when someone miscounts a bag or drops a ginger root that rolls across the floor. Around mid-morning, James notices Diep hasn't eaten anything yet. He quietly places a small breakfast bread and a bottle of water on the corner of her desk. "You should eat something," he says softly. She glances at it, then at him. "In a minute," she replies, but there's a slight smile in her eyes. As manager of the DJ company here, Diep handles every decision directly. Pricing, quality checks, scheduling shipments. Nothing passes without her approval. She's firm but fair, and the villagers respect that. They know she listens, and they know she keeps her word. James, on the other hand, moves between tasks effortlessly. One moment he's checking ginger quality, the next he's helping load potatoes onto a cart. Someone jokes that he works more like an owner than an assistant, and he just laughs it off, wiping sweat from his forehead. Late in the morning, a small mix-up happens when 2 bags of ginger are mistakenly weighed under the wrong name. James catches it just in time, quietly pointing it out to Diep before it becomes a bigger issue. "Good catch," she says, adjusting the records. He shrugs. "That's what I'm here for." For a brief moment, their eyes meet. Not with anything dramatic, just mutual understanding. No past, no labels, just 2 people working side by side. By noon, the sun has burned away most of the fog. The warehouse doors are wide open, letting in light and a breeze that carries the scent of grass and distant forests. Trucks are lined up, ready to transport the produce out of the village and into the wider market. Diep stands at the entrance, watching as the last crates are loaded. James joins her, handing over the final checklist. "Everything's ready," he says. She reviews it quickly, then nods. "Good work today." They stand there for a moment in silence, listening to the sounds of the village. Voices, engines, footsteps. It's not excitement or passion that fills the space between them, but something steadier, something that feels earned. For now, this work, this place, and this quiet cooperation are enough. The afternoon light settles gently over the village, softer than the sharp brightness of noon. A few clouds drift lazily across the sky, casting slow-moving shadows over the fields and the warehouse yard. Work doesn't stop, it simply changes pace. Inside the warehouse, the next shipment is being prepared. This one is bigger than usual. Pomelos are laid out carefully on wooden tables, their green skins still slightly damp from being washed. Potatoes are sorted by size, while ginger is bundled and tied with simple rope. Diep stands at the centre of it all, checking each stage with quiet focus. Her voice remains calm, but firm enough that everyone listens. She reviews prices with a trader who's come up from the lowlands, her tone polite but unwavering. "This batch meets our standards," she says. "The price stays as agreed." The trader hesitates, glancing at the pomelos again. James steps closer, opening his notebook and showing the recorded weights and quality grades. "These were harvested 3 days ago," he explains evenly. "Sugar level is high, storage conditions are good." After a moment, the trader nods. "All right, we'll proceed." As the paperwork is signed, Diep exhales slowly, almost imperceptibly. James notices and gives her a small nod, as if to say everything's under control. Later, an unexpected issue arises. One of the trucks scheduled to transport the produce breaks down on the mountain road. News spreads quickly, and the warehouse falls into a brief, uneasy pause. Delays here don't just mean inconvenience, they affect farmers' income and the company's reputation. James reacts immediately. He steps aside to make a call, then speaks with a few villagers who own smaller vehicles. "We can split the load," he suggests. "It'll take longer, but we won't miss the deadline." Diep watches as he coordinates calmly, without raising his voice or drawing attention to himself. Within minutes, a solution is in place. It's not perfect, but it works. "Let's do it," she says decisively. The afternoon stretches on with renewed energy. Pomelos are carefully loaded into smaller trucks, potatoes stacked in reinforced crates. Everyone moves with purpose, driven by a shared goal rather than pressure. As the sun begins to dip behind the hills, the last vehicle pulls away. The warehouse grows quiet again, the air now filled with the faint warmth of stored produce and dust. Diep and James sit down on the low steps outside the building. Someone brings over 2 cups of hot ginger tea. Steam rises gently as the cool evening air settles in. Neither of them speaks at first. The village grows quieter too. Children's voices fade and cooking smoke curls up from distant houses. Somewhere a dog barks, then goes silent. "This place is changing," James says, finally staring ahead. "Slowly, but it is." Diep nods. "It needs time, like everything else." He hesitates, then adds, "I wouldn't mind staying here longer, working like this." She turns to look at him, really look at him for a moment. There's no surprise in her expression, only thoughtfulness. "We'll see how the next season goes," she replies. It's not a promise, but it's not a rejection either. They sip their tea in comfortable silence. Later that evening, Diep reviews the final reports under a dim light inside the office. James organises tools and closes the warehouse doors, making sure everything is secure for the night. Before leaving, he places the completed logs on her desk. "Tomorrow's schedule," he says simply. She looks up. "Thanks." Their exchange is brief, professional, but beneath it lies something softer. Trust, familiarity, a sense of balance they didn't have before. Outside, the mountains stand dark against the night sky. The road ahead is uncertain, but for now, there's stability here. Work that matters, days that pass without conflict, and two people choosing, quietly, to move forward together without defining what that means. The village sleeps, and so does the past, at least for tonight.
Trong tập này, Linda theo bà và cậu cháu ra nương mía. Dưới nắng sớm, bà vừa chặt mía vừa kể chuyện ngày xưa. Dạy chặt 3 hoặc 4 khúc cho đẹp để bán được giá.